I don't think I'll ever have anyone more special on my podcast because she's my sister, my big sister, not that big though, because we only have how many months? 10 months? I was going to say 7. No, I don't
10,
think so.
10.
Yeah, the only difference we have is actually 10 months. But we decided to do this because we know how devastating suicide can be for families, and it is. But also sometimes because family members, they disagree on what the suicide was, or even some family members will not even accept the fact that it was suicide. And that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about how we see things differently, and that's okay. So, we are going to focus today on the death of our father and how we both saw it differently. We have another sister, but again, it's just an example. She is not into doing interviews, and I asked her to be here because the idea was to do the three of us. But she said, no, no, thanks. Thanks, but no thanks. So, it's going to be me and Renata. I'm going to call her the way I always did, Tata. So Renata sounds weird to me. I am going to start by asking you to, can you just give me an overview of how you see our dad since childhood?
Um, I mean, as a father, he was a good father. I mean, I always thought he was very caring and attentive towards us. Family, in a general way, he was what we call a family man. But as a person, he was pretty much a mountain of contradictions. Like on one hand, if he was a very discreet person, I don't remember ever hearing him say anything negative or bad about people.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not a gossip or judgmental. And so is my mom. And they never, um, they seem to accept everyone in our lives anyway,
Mm-hmm.
um, as they came. I mean, the way they were. But then on the other hand, he was loud and explosive and angry. Uh, and he wasn't shy about sharing his opinions and beliefs in general. The louder, the better.
Yeah, he
Uh,
was loud, I have to say. We have to agree on that.
um, another another thing that now with hindsight is that I think he was only diagnosed with depression right around the time when he died. But I think he's always had depression.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking back and kind of analyzing the way he was and his behaviors, I think he's always had it. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the same too when I look back. But, back then, nobody even thought about that. And even if you did, it wasn't something very common to go to a psychiatrist. And
and the same way he didn't accept taking medication or
hmm
taking care of it. He when before he died, he wouldn't have had 20, 30 years before either. So
yeah, he was quite proud, as I remember. It was very hard for him to even admit that he was not this stoic, perfect human being.
yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the last day. You were the only one who saw him the day before he died. Can you just walk through that day and what happened? Because I do remember a few things, and that's the thing with trauma. We have so many gaps in our memory. So can you just remind me what happened and the things that you noticed that day?
Well, in my case, I haven't forgotten anything. I
Huh.
remember exactly what happened, and I remember the whole day. He came over early afternoon, lunchtime, and we had lunch together. and basically it seemed to me like he just wanted to stay there and talk, and we talked, but it wasn't anything like relaxing
Hmm.
or easy. It was a very tense day.
Hmm.
On one hand, I was also going through things at the time. I had just recently separated and was going through the whole separation, um, to my ex-husband. I had a little kid. She was 4 at the time. And I felt that there's something not right. Not that I thought he was okay before, and that day nothing was right. It was just, things that I picked up, like the way he was talking and the way he was bringing up subjects that I felt like, why are we talking about this?
It
You
didn't
know,
make
things,
sense.
yeah, like things from the past, and and then he started talking about things related to his apartment where he lived there and my mom's apartment, and
Hmm.
it was like, okay, so what's that
So
all about? Because
reminiscing in a way.
yeah, no, no, just like letting me know that, oh, the apartment he lives now, I want you to talk to your sisters, and let him know that I want this apartment to be Sonia's, which was his girlfriend at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and your mother
Hmm.
um, keeps her apartment. And I said, well, why are you talking about this? Yeah, just in case, stuff like that. And then
Huh.
I could feel he was very worked up.
Uh-huh.
But we just sat there and made conversation. Um, it wasn't an easy going conversation. It was
Mm-hmm.
weird.
But was there a point when you started thinking maybe he's thinking about suicide or hurt himself or
Yes, yes. But you do think about that, but at the same time, you think, nah, can't be.
yeah, because
You'd never
we
do
we
that.
didn't have any history in our family or anything. So
No. So much so that after he left, I went to meet a friend of ours, Maxwell, and I told him, I said, this is really weird, but my dad was, it seemed like he was off, and I'm afraid he might, do something stupid. I don't know. And we talked about it a lot during that evening
mhm.
together. So,
Because I remember that when you called me that night, you were really scared that he was going to hurt himself. And one of the things that I don't know if we talked about this that night or we've talked about this over time, but that you would ask him if if he was going to pick me up at the airport the following week because I was out of town.
I don't
And
remember that, but I do remember that we talked about it, but I think it was afterwards.
oh, okay,
The only person I talked to about having those, the feeling that something wasn't right was Maxwell.
okay, when you talked to him.
Mhm.
And that's when you talked about the guns that he had sold the guns, right? Because I talked about this in another episode that,
Yes, when I
uh,
told Maxwell about the feeling that he might be do something stupid, then he said, "Well, hey, he just sold me 3 of his guns," and I asked, "Why aren't you selling me this one?" And he said, "No, this one's for me." And I
and
was like,
again, I mean, that's unusual, but again, nobody would think, well, this is for me because I want to keep one, right?
"Yeah." So that's what we were thinking now. But he meant he just wants to keep one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
So let's talk about your grief. How was your process?
Well, there's the long term and the short term. The
Mm-hmm.
short term is basically just desperation, devastated, not knowing what's happening. And I mean, knowing what's happening, but it's really hard to get to the point where you think, okay, well, the first thing is, if I was having all those feelings and um, ideas that something wasn't wrong, why didn't I do more? In fact, I had done nothing because what would I do?
Hmm.
So
So you
those were
felt
the
guilty?
first.
You felt
Oh
guilty
yeah,
about that day? Yeah.
absolutely, very, very, very guilty.
Did
Yeah.
it last a long time or was it something?
No, no, not really. Because even though I did feel guilty, I understood what my feelings of guilt were.
Uh-huh.
And I also understood that um, there wasn't really anything. If he was so set on doing what he did, and we know he was because of all the preparation and everything that
Yeah.
he did.
It
So, but
it
yeah,
was
there was enormous guilt. I felt
hmm
like I was the one who had seen him. I was the one there in the same city with him.
yeah.
So it fell on me to
Hmm.
do to do something, but
Yeah.
I didn't do anything.
Did you ever feel angry about what he did? Because I never did. I never felt angry. I felt very sad and sorry for him, but never angry. But
No,
that's common for families.
no, not angry at all. I mean, I felt like, who am I to judge him and what he's
Hmm.
feeling? Even though obviously I am against suicide, um, it was his life.
Hmm.
And if he felt he couldn't live anymore, who was I to tell him how he had to live or not live? So, no,
Hmm.
not anger.
Hmm.
Extreme sadness, devastation, and all of that. But no, not anger.
Hmm. Did you feel in any way that you were blamed about that day? Not for the suicide itself, but
Oh, by
for
other people?
oh yeah,
Oh
by other
yeah,
people. You did?
yeah. We have those. Well, I don't know if I should be talking about it, but yeah,
You don't have to. You don't have to say names.
no names, but I had let's see, a couple
Was
of
it?
people in the family, his side of the family, who felt that I should have done something, and how could I not have done anything, and like it was my, well, yeah, blamed me for
Yeah,
not
yeah.
having done anything because I should have known and I should have done something.
Hmm.
What? Just stop him? How? Go to his house and physically stop him if I don't even know? But anyway,
Yeah,
we
and
had this
again, as you said,
conversation.
yeah, and
We
as you
discussed.
said, I mean, how could I stop if I didn't even think about it? I mean,
I mean, I
I,
thought about it. I
mm,
thought he was going to do something stupid, but I didn't know what this stupid thing was going to be, or
hmm.
when, or how, or any of it. So,
Hmm. Do you have memory loss too? Because I have like a fog about those days. It's
no,
really funny because for you, you know every single minute of
I
what
have
happened.
zero fog. I mean, I felt in a fog after he died, after,
Mm-hmm.
the first few days, but it's just the fog of going through the motions, waking up, especially when you have a little kid. There's a whole lot of things that you have to be prepared for. And so I felt the like a unrealness of the situation, but no memory loss of any kind. No.
Mm. I remember one of the things that happened to you was, and this is part of the impact of suicide in families. Sometimes we get so scared that we're going to do the same, especially if we have a history of mental illness. And I remember you calling me one day and you said, I have to treat this because you have depression, and I had depression at the time too. You said, I have to treat because I'm not going to do the same thing. Do you remember that?
Mm, not really. I remember being afraid of thinking about doing that. I remember
Oh,
that.
okay.
I remember that I thought, well, if he did it, who's to say that I don't have the same instincts in me
Mm-hmm.
myself? So
Mm-hmm.
the same way as he was an alcoholic, and I don't think I've had a drink before I was 30, because I thought if I had one drink, I was going to become an alcoholic too. So that was the same thing with suicide. I'm saying, well,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if he did it, and I'm depressed, he was depressed, I'm depressed.
Therefore, yeah.
Therefore,
But I do remember that it had, in a way, it was a positive impact on you because it made you take care of yourself, go to the doctor, and start taking medication and being
yeah,
aware that that could happen. Because that's the thing. When someone does that in a family, it opens the door and it tells you, well, here, you can come in if you want to, right?
yeah.
In your grief, what do you think helped the most?
I don't think anything really helped except time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not religious, so I don't have, um, some people have their faith
Mm-hmm.
to be their source of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
I normally, like, I don't like talking about it in terms of, I don't feel like people talking to me and telling me to, you know,
You'll be
do this, do
okay.
that,
Yeah.
or this doesn't help me, doesn't comfort me. I'm afraid I'm not a very easy person to be comforted. Like, I don't feel like there's much out there that can comfort me. I just need
Mm-hmm.
to, you know, go through things and wait until it gets better.
Mm-hmm. For me, one thing, and I want to check if it's the same for you. In our family, we never really hid it. We never talked about an accident or anything like that. So suicide was suicide. He took his own life, and we never really had any problems talking within our family. And when
No.
I say family, it's me, you, Evelini, and my
or
mom.
or other people either. I never felt the compulsion to be secretive or not talk about it. Anything.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody asks, I had no problem at that time or now to talk about it, and I can tell you everything
Mm-hmm.
that you want to know. I really don't have an issue with that. Uh, what for me doesn't really work is like it's like people trying to be nice, and I understand and I accept where they're coming from, but I don't feel like telling me to do something or feel something works. I just
Mm-hmm.
have to be, you know, be me and do what I think is right. And if I want to cry, I
Just
cry. If
respect,
I,
yeah, respect your own pace. But I
yeah,
do think that the fact that within our family, and I'm talking about the healing of the family as a unit, I think it was really helpful that we always felt that we could talk to each other.
yes, absolutely. That's not even in question. I don't think we reacted like a lot of people do when they are like afraid of talking to each other about what happened and how and why. We think that
And
was
especially the why. I think we all had an understanding of the why, and also there was never any blame. There was never any pointing fingers and saying, "Oh, how could you?" or "Why didn't you?" or no,
no,
I
absolutely
no,
not.
yeah,
And
we're
not
very fortunate that it didn't
and
happen because it's common. It does happen in families.
and even in terms of his suicide, it was never a mystery to me why he committed
Mm-hmm.
suicide. So to me, there was never the, oh, why did he do that? Um, and that was kind of a good thing in a way, because when people would ask me, but why? Then I would have the exact answer that I
Mm-hmm.
thought was the truth.
And what was that answer to you? How do you see his suicide?
He
Why
just
did he
couldn't
do it?
he just couldn't deal with life the way it was. He couldn't deal with having us helping him financially. Um, if you remember, we were paying his insurance,
Mm-hmm.
medical insurance at the time. He just couldn't stand that. You came over and brought like groceries and things like this because uh, I don't know if everybody who read your book knows. I can't remember if you mentioned, but he kind of like lost his savings in a business, and he was going to be in a very hard situation, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so he couldn't live like that. He could not. I can't even imagine Dad living his life dependent on a person, because he was the one who always, he was the giver, he was the
Yeah,
provider.
yeah.
So, and he was very proud. He
He
could not.
was always the one who paid all the bills. We would go to, remember, to restaurants. I mean, the whole family would be there. And I mean, not the unit, the extended family, and he would pay the bill.
Yeah, he
That's the
was.
kind of person he was. Yeah.
Yeah, he was very arrogant sometimes in terms of he didn't accept being
Mm-hmm.
helped in any way, not just
Mm-hmm.
financially, but so yeah, we knew that, after the failure of his business, he wouldn't be able to live like that.
Well, it's
So,
this, yeah, it's the same view I have. I have
and he
zero
knew he was
disagreement.
healthy. He knew he was
Yeah.
physically healthy.
Mm-hmm.
He knew he was going to live
He was going to be
very
around for
long.
a while. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think in his mind, it's like, what? No, not
Yeah.
doing
And
it.
he really, really planned it in details,
Yeah.
which was very much in accordance to his personality. He was
Oh,
a
yeah.
planner. He was a planner. Yeah.
Yeah. So he killed himself on the 10th of January. And he did his income tax return a few days before.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, remember that he actually posted a letter to me 2 days before. Do you
Yeah.
remember that? Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that.
He died on a Monday. I got the letter on a Tuesday.
And he had I don't know if you remember that, but in the envelope, there were all his credit cards with the latest or last bill paid. Um,
My God.
And oh, I don't know if you remember that, probably not. But before he left my house on Monday, he gave me an envelope with money and said, this is for you. If something happens, you can use this money." I said, "Something what? What do you mean? You don't have any money. Why are you giving me any money? Why are you giving me?"
Yeah. Wow. I didn't know. I
And,
didn't remember that.
and it was the exact amount that it cost to bury him. All
So
the
he did. So he did the
Yeah,
research. Oh my God.
the funeral casket, blah blah blah, everything. So yeah, there is nothing.
Wow. Okay. So before we end, the last thing I remember is that he also, before he did what he did, and I don't want to get into details of method, but he wrote a letter to the police. Remember, do not investigate. It was suicide, and he signed it.
He signed it and he put it
He
on the
put it on
wall
the wall. Yeah.
beside his bed.
Oh, well. Okay. Do you have any um, suggestions for families who are going through this kind of loss?
Well, with my own experience, what I suggest is don't try to do what people want you to do. Just do your thing. Respect yourself, respect other people, be kind, be nice to your family, but basically grieve in your own way. Don't make anything, don't do anything that people want you to do because they think it's better or right for you, I think.
Mm-hmm. And just to finish, and also use the same process for others, the same idea for others. Don't expect anyone to grieve the way you grieve, because they're going to
Exactly.
do it differently. Respect their pace, their views on what happened. If they can't accept it, then that's okay. We
Yeah,
all grieve differently. Just respect, because they're going to be your family and they're the ones who are going to stay with you.
exactly.
Okay, Renata, muchas gracias. We actually don't say that in Portuguese. I don't know
No, we
why. I
say
love. We say obrigada.
de nada.
De nada. De nada is the same as Spanish. We don't speak Spanish, speak Portuguese. But I don't know. I just think it's cute. I love saying muchas gracias. Okay, Tata, gracias. Now go back to your husband. Go back to my Pipa. That's
My
my
arts.
that's my niece, my beautiful Clara. Mwah, give her a big kiss. Bye.
Okay, bye.